In these past 6 months, I've run somewhere in the neighborhood of about 500 miles, as well as completed my first marathon and ultra marathon distances. My name is Christian, and I'm an ultra runner and a US Navy veteran. These are what I think are the 5 most important lessons I've learned in the last 6 months of running, and I think number 4 has been my favorite. The first thing that's changed is that I now view my own body from a much more holistic standpoint. When I ran in the military, it was because I was told I had to. We had physical fitness tests that had requirements that I had to meet, including a 1.5 mile run. Fortunately for me, I was in good enough shape from lifting weights, hiking, and surfing a lot that I could squeak out a decent time on my run without ever really having to train for that specifically. But now that I do run a lot, it's really shifted my perspective and how important running is for my life. It's not uncommon to view ourselves as different people throughout the different aspects of our day-to-day. What I mean by that is the guy that goes into the office sometimes feels like a different person than the one who's watching Netflix way too late at night. Or in my case, the guy who's polishing off a fifth of whiskey every night is the same guy who wanted to perform well in the gym or be a better surfer. For years, the common sense part of my brain decided to ignore the fact that even though the version of me that makes less than stellar decisions on a Saturday night and the version of me who wants to get the most out of their workout on Monday feel completely separate, they each had to deal with the repercussions of the other's decisions. I'm not here to preach to anyone about any certain kind of diet or abstaining from things you enjoy, but for me personally, I've noticed the more I run, the more I want to run well. And to run well frequently, I have to recover well very quickly. Because of that, I started going to sleep earlier, having better sleep hygiene to do so, and changing my diet to healthier foods that help reduce inflammation and let me get back to running faster. I also cut out alcohol. I found that the way my whole week is gonna go is generally decided by how I treat my body on Friday and Saturday, when I think most of us just wanna cut loose a little bit. There's nothing wrong with having a good time in the way that you see fit, but as I get older and my body just starts to bounce back slower, I've had to start making trade-offs to chase the possibility of being a really exceptional runner. The second thing that's changed about me is my level of patience. I don't think this is entirely unique to running. I think it's part of getting older and my perception of time, but running has definitely provided a little bit more of a concrete measurement of my patience. Not only on those long runs where time seems to tick by increasingly slower, but also in the bigger goals that I have that may take a year or a few years to achieve. If I want to run 100 miles next year in the Rim to River, or maybe one day run 500 miles, then it's going to take time to build up to that. So I can either give myself that time to grow, or I can give up. Those kind of feel like the only two options, and I would much rather just be patient and achieve incredible things. The first time I saw very real evidence of this growth was a few weeks ago. In my training leading up to my ultra race back in August, after my weekly long runs, I would be out of commission for the rest of the day, and sometimes even be so sore leading into the next day that I couldn't run again because my legs were still jello. But then just a few weeks ago, what was supposed to be a 6 or 7 mile run turned into a 20+ mile run, and even though I was absolutely beat by the end of it, about 2 hours later, I was able to jog down the road to get dinner, which was just a massive change in the durability of my legs. I think this is a great example of how the more time you give yourself to grow, the better you're gonna be. You may not see it day to day, but I promise you, if you stick with it, you will get stronger. Third is something I've slowly been learning over the past 15 years, but running has given me further insight into, and that's just how much my mental health needs to be protected. If you haven't noticed for yourself when you exercise, there are so many studies out there that link exercise and a bunch of feel-good chemicals that release in your brain when you do it. Like this 2021 study from the Annual Review of Medicine that confirms the benefits of both aerobic and resistance training to create a quote-unquote virtuous cycle in the brain where the more you do it, the more rewarded you feel for it, and the healthier you then become by continuing to make those positive decisions. Being someone who spent years struggling with his mental health, with issues with anxiety and depression, now that I've found ways to drag myself out of that place and seeing what life is like on the other side of it, I protect that mental health and clarity relentlessly. Some people do it through lifting weights or biking or hiking. My preferred way has just become running and having the opportunity to lose myself out on the trails. Not only that, but in this 2022 study by the American Institute of Mathematical Sciences, the researchers found that aerobic training between 30 and 60 minutes, 3 times per week, were shown to have a positive effect on certain functions of the brain, including executive function, attention span and information processing speed, and memory. So regular aerobic exercise like running is pretty much all around good for us. The fourth thing I've learned, and maybe my favorite on this list, is that there's community through shared struggle. Do you remember when you were a kid in school and you were given a really hard test? At the end, everyone in your class was like, man, I did awful. It's like you all grew a little bit closer because of the mutual feeling of struggling through something together. Everyone felt a little bit more relatable because you all kind of suck. In the military, we called this a few different things that I'm not gonna say on the internet, but the most polite way we said it was embracing the suck together. Running is exactly the same. When I meet new people that are also runners and We talk about the race we're training for or the last race we did. There's this mutual respect that comes from the understanding that this person knows how to suffer with purpose. They know the feeling of putting your head down and getting the work done even when they don't want to, or they know it's gonna be hard. And anyone who's willing to put themselves through that and still want more when they come out the other side is a friend of mine. I think that to some extent, struggling is a universal feeling. Doing it through the lens of a runner gives us shared insight into each other's lives and a sense of camaraderie. And fifth and finally, running keeps you young. And I don't just mean health-wise. Running is one of those few things in life that we do as kids, and for some reason or another, the enjoyment gets a little bit beat out of us as we get older. When you look at kids, they just run because they have boundless energy and they're excited. As adults, we tend to have a little bit more trouble being excited about life. But when I'm out running, it's not uncommon for me to just let all the stress and responsibilities of adult life fade away and feel like a kid again. You're telling me for an hour I can run through the woods and feel like I'm on some grand adventure instead of worrying about paying bills and house maintenance? I can run an ultra race and imagine that I'm the protagonist in some great story of triumph seeking glory? Yeah, sign me up. Don't get me wrong, it's pretty easy to get caught up in all the data behind your runs and competing with people on Strava, but every once in a while, I think you should just lose the watch and go run. Find a new trail or run to a new coffee shop in your city. Just go be a kid on an adventure. I think you'll be glad you did. Anyways, that's it for today. Keep crushing those big miles, and I'll see you in the next one.